Hello, everyone, and welcome for joining us to a very exciting episode 21 of Tea and Trails podcast. Thanks to Outdoor Active, Vila Forte, Silver, Active Roots, Centurion Running Store, Protein Rebel, Sportshoes.com, and Big Bubble Hats for supporting the show and our community. For the price of a cuppa, you get, oh God, it's more than a price of a cuppa for me, Gary. I've just had to order my PG tips, I tell you what. We need a few more patrons to cover the cost of that. You can unlock some great perks that will help take the sting out of what can become a very expensive sport. Last but not least, thank you to all our patrons who dig deep every month and literally keep the lights hot and the mics on. Go over to Patreon and check out all the amazing deals. Also, pop over to Summit Crazy if you'd like some awesome Tea and Trails merch. Just regard my chest, Gary. Not only is my chest magnificent...
You're not going to grope your chest.
There's nothing to grope. Well, it's down below my knees. I've had 3 kids. But I got my sweatshirt at great cost. Haven't taken it off. You can only see the top bit because it's got, cauliflower curry, toothpaste.
Pesto pasta.
Even Bryn went, oh, I like that colour. It's a great colour. I love a sweatshirt. Yeah. I'm not going to do any physical activity in it because otherwise it then becomes a smelly sweatshirt. It's going to be a house.
Well, I'm sporting the red.
I know. Look
tee.
at that.
Really sweet. My friend Neil, who we're doing the All County Tops with, he messaged me the weekend asking what my clothing choice was for All County Tops, and he's ordered a red tech tee too. So we're going to be Tea and Trails team on the All County Tops. It's going to be awesome.
I just can't. I'm so sorry. Anyone that comes past you, sees you.
We're so sad. I said to him,
give him a wide berth.
I told him what colour shorts I'm wearing too. So
I love it. I can't wait. Tweedledum, Tweedledee.
Yeah. But I do need to do a bit of Patreon admin. A few people reached out and asked if those codes are introductory codes over on Patreon, or you can use them over and over again. And I'm pretty sure, they're not trying to get their claws on you once and that's it. Then it goes back to full price. I'm pretty sure you can use them over and over again. So if you kind of enter into like a monthly subscription, I didn't realize this, but quite a few of my friends do that with various running brands. So they get a stash every month of their protein or whatever.
I do it with dog food. Is that the same thing?
Oh, that could be a Patreon perk, couldn't it? If we get a dog food.
Dog food, feed my dogs. My training pals.
But awesome. You can use them. What is good, actually. You asked, so I reached out to X-Miles, and they are now a Patreon perk. I think it's 10% off site-wide. And I looked on there. What is excellent with X-Miles? They just got a massive range of different brands on there you can use. So fill your boots. I might, I've never tried it. I've always been curious. The Morton gels.
You got how rich are you feeling?
I know. Well, this is it. Yeah.
They don't look very nice, but I know people that use them, love them. On a triathlon podcast that I listen to, so Morton often sponsor the runs on Ironman triathlons.
Okay.
And then these 2 pro triathletes do a podcast, and they challenge people to see how many Morton gels you can stuff down your tops and shorts and then keep them, so you get your money back, because entering an Ironman really expensive.
Yeah.
So they're like, get your money back with all the Morton gels so you can stuff down and keep for later.
I love it. But I know somebody who actually got a sugar intolerance. I think I've mentioned this in the podcast in the past. And whatever the ingredients are in a Morton gel, he can stomach it. So if you're having trouble with sugar and nutrition, then maybe check out the ingredients on a Morton gel. But where are we? Episode 21. And this week we have Brew with the Coaches again, Tales from the Trails, and we have an Ask the Horse show. We thought we'd try something new this week. Did turn into a bit of a Ask the Coaches show, but we were all with it. We said nothing was off limits, so we'd give it a go before we try something new. Let's go back. We'll try and test the formula. How you doing, Eddie?
Oh, Gary, as I said, I just wimped out my hill reps. I had a very bad night's sleep. Well, these bank holidays, will they ever end?
They're not over, are they? You guys,
this is in the UK. You guys, you've had this. Next week, the kids are only at school for 2 days. What the hell? It just throws the rhythm of the week out, because Sunday night Monday night becomes a new Sunday night. Oh, then you think it's Monday all day on Tuesday and it's not. And then my kids don't go to school or when literally what the hell. And I just have the children for so much. Just want someone else to take care of them. 4 days. Anyway, this morning I had to get bikes to school. So we biked to school while I ran. And I was like, I tied the dogs to my waist. Because I was like, the only way I'm going to keep up is by dog power. Even
they've
then,
got gravity on this side too, the bikes down the hill.
Yeah, so I just kept going, brake. Anyway, I thought I'll do my hill reps back up the hill home. I was so tired. I had a bad night's sleep. A 10-minute mark, I was like sweating and hot. And I was like, do you know what? No, Eddie, I'm going to move this a day and hopefully get a bit more out of myself. So normally I've done my hill reps, but I haven't this week. But last week was just to tick the box. It was good. I did hills. I did 2 double long runs, as I said, 4 hours, 3 hours. The weather has become quite close and hot. Got a bit of sunburn from I had my heart rate strap on my arm. So now I've got
I've never done that. I've never used a heart rate strap on the arm. Is it?
That's what I use all the time. Don't use it. Oh my God, don't use a chest strap. The chaffing from the chest strap as a lady, with my enormous jugs, the chaffing. And then if you put a pack on as well over the top, it's too much bulk. It's too much bulk. So, and I actually find the arm one, you'd think, oh, that won't be as accurate, but just as accurate. And I've got a Bluetooth one, so you don't need a battery. So you can just charge it up and you can just take it off. Like, it's not like horrible to put on like a sweaty chest strap, or when it's cold, you don't have to do any licking of surfaces. No one likes that. So yeah, use that. Anyway, got a bit of sunburn. Did my 2 long runs, took them super easy. Normally any like steep incline, I walked, ran to the snow's melting really quickly. So I got out a bit higher, new terrain. Oh, it's like a kid in a sweet shop. Yeah, it was lovely. I loved it. It wasn't hard. It was pretty, so it was such low intensity that I came away from that feeling fine. Maybe I'm a bit more tired than I thought I was. Then, I had quite a lot of childcare to do. So that was a little bit tricky. So I did a lot of kids hiking, which is fun. My kids are very, very good hikers. Obviously, they're fit as fiddles. So hiking up, we did 2.5, 3 hours is to them is like, that's just a day out. It's compared to the stuff that they do with ski club when they have to hike like 30, 40K a day. This is like a 10K hike. They're like, it's easy breezy.
Oh, it's great. The proper adventures you can have.
We went on some proper adventures. It was great. And I love the chats that you have when you're out hiking, especially with the older ones who conversation becomes a little bit more, you don't get the deets that you want. The 7-year-old, she tells me everything. I get the full the dreams she's had, the books she's read, what so-and-so said to so-and-so in the playground, what lunch she had. And then it drives the boys mad because they're like, she's going, Mum, we don't need all this detail. I'm like, I do need all the deets. The older ones, but when we're out hiking, get all sorts of nuggets of hilarious. I wish I could record it. And I love doing anything outside with the kids. Obviously, there's a lot of sweets and a lot of snacks goes into that. So I carried it all. I just used it as training, and I filled up my massive ski backpack with everything. Coats, we didn't need half the stuff. Tea, loads and loads of snacks. And the climb we did yesterday is 1 mile, 1,500 feet. It's really steep, average 25%. Love it. But they kept stopping and I didn't take my poles because I was like, more strength needed, Eddie. They kept stopping up this, and it was quite muddy. They kept stopping, and I was like, you can't stop suddenly in front of me. I've got quite a heavy backpack. If I lean backwards, Mum's going down the hill, and they were like, let's see it, Mum. Let's see if you roll down the hill. There's quite a lot of like single track, big drops down the side. The kids don't even notice. I love that. I was like, came across a bit that where, especially when it's just the snow's just melted and the trail, they go in and like put the chains on the paths and stuff, and they haven't done that. So, and there was a bit that was like just rocks. You had to just put your feet across rocks, 1,000 feet of drop down the side. And I got to it and they'd already disappeared. I was like, Eve, have you crossed that? And she was like gone. I was like, oh, maybe a bit more.
We see it in the lakes. There's quite a few times I've been to the lakes, and I'll be doing my classic 4 points of contact, and there'll be a little 5-year-old just bounce past me.
Bounce up and down, damn them. So I had to converted quite a lot of my running to hiking, weighted hikes. But I'd listened to Lizzie on the podcast before, and her saying, now she had the power to, if she felt like hiking, she'd do long hikes instead of long runs. It's no wasted time. Time on feet is not wasted time. So I loved all that. God, it was tired me out though. Yesterday we came back and the boys just started playing football. Eves and I had to go and have a Netflix binge. I had to have a sleep. So doing that, it did make, then I had to do my runs in the evening, and it was a bit of a chore to get out. And so I think that's why today was a bit of a epic fail. But that's fine. I listen to the body. That's much more important. So another good week, good mileage. I think about 70 miles, 50,000 feet of climbing.
50,000 feet?
15.
I said 50.
Oh, that's what it takes to impress you, is it? 50. I'll get there one day. No magic, but it's all there. It's all coming. It's all starting to come together. I tell you what I did do on Saturday night, so sad. I did my hill reps up on concrete, a classic 5-5-4-4-3-3-2-2-1-1 uphill with just a 30-second jog down in between, so it kept the heart rate up a bit. And then at the top, I did a then steady state run down on tired legs, where to sort of mimic a bit of like the South Downs way, where you just want to you're going to have to run downhill for 500, 800 feet. And so you're just going to bash the quads up a little bit. So I did a little bit of that too. That felt good. But it's hard running downhill, hard. You want to just back off a little bit. And it's
dangerous too. You could injure yourself if you're not.
Oh, Gary, come on. We're all right. We're going to be all right. Keep the core engaged, the butt cheeks up, and you'll be all right. So, nothing super exciting, but sometimes those are the best weeks, aren't they? Ticking the boxes. What about you?
No, nothing too major. There's no financial disasters, sending money to whoever all over. But from the PayPal point of view, everything came back eventually. But I did, because I was feeling really poorly. I started the week off light. I think I'd said I was going to jump on a mini Old County Tops taper. Because I started to feel okay midweek, I've reverted back to the old training plans. So, but yes.
Classic.
I know. Started the week off light. I did some strides. That was good. Then I tried, because my heart rate variability went back in the green, I tried a medium long run, which effort-wise and how I felt was fine, but I think it was only about 7 or 8 miles, so it definitely wasn't a medium long run. I just faffed on too long, ran out of time, and then the
pre-run faff. If I don't get out first thing in the morning, it can be like 7 o'clock at night until I'm like, right, come on, get out.
Well, same happened Saturday. I was supposed to go for a run in the morning, faffed on, ended up doing a walk with George, and then my run in the evening. But going back to, I think, Wednesday, then I tried a session because I felt okay, which I'm just that classic athlete who says, give myself a bit of grace for a week, and I just can't resist it. I can't stop myself from doing a workout. So the session was 3 times 10-minute hills, but I kept getting work phone calls halfway when I was doing a session. So halfway between a rep. So I ended up doing 4 times 10. I'm really puzzled by not puzzled, but where I do them around the Dean. It's supposed to be 10 minutes in this heart rate zone for this threshold effort. But because some of the descents take me into zone 3, I'm just not too sure of the value of it. I could find a 10-minute hill, but then instead of having a 90-second recovery, I've got like a 5-minute recovery. So
I think the impact of running faster downhill than you normally do, even though the heart rate drops, adds bonus to the session. And I think it's realistic to what you're going to do. Like if you were going to do a 2,000 meter climb race, then you want to be constantly going uphill. But I think the undulation is probably kind of on your body too, as well.
Yeah. And also with an eye on cross country. I know I mentioned that when I hijacked.
Always an eye on another race.
And that's why those 4 times 10-minute sessions, again, there's no logic to this apart from me just wanting to do more, because they say the session should be a 3 times 10-minute, but because quite often I'm dropping out of that zone, I'll put in the 4 times 10 minutes just to hopefully get the 30
minutes. It's very hard on a longer rep as well, 10 minutes, because it takes you, in order for that rep to be a viable pace, you can't run top end for 10 minutes up a hill, because not only will you die, but your form will all go to pot and you'll just end up going to stop. So you actually spend about 3 or 4 minutes in a lower zone building the heart rate up, but that's okay. I think you accept that as part of that. That's what's going to happen in that longer rep. And I look at it more as like a strength, focusing on the form as well on that longer rep. Hips forward, soft knees, nice relaxed shoulders. But yeah, you can't be 40 minutes in that threshold. I don't think you can be. I think 40 minutes is too long to be in threshold.
It's a long time, isn't it? But then I did an interesting thing on Saturday because I was chasing elevation.
You were. I mean, I also looked at your grade adjusted pace. I was like, what was he doing?
I don't even check that. But what I did was kind of a mental game on my watch.
Was it like 15 up and downs you did or something?
Yeah, that's as good as we get, unfortunately, where I live, to get the maximum elevation per distance ratio. But I set the watch face, the data fail, just to elevation. So I was chasing this 3,800 feet, roughly that, which would have took me to 10,000 feet for the end of Saturday. But that was the only metric I was aware of. And it was really hard mentally just watching them slowly go up to like nearly 4,000 feet. So I was going to turn it off and not look at it all. And I thought, no, let's own this and just use it as a bit of a tool, a bit of a mental strength tool. And I enjoyed it. And then I did another longish run on Sunday. I had a bit of company with that in the 17 hills. And what I did, again, you saying about hiking, I hiked all the hills. I was talking to Chris, my friend, about this, and my easy heart rate, I think, maxes out at about 127 beats. And that was roughly what I did the Lakeland 100 in. But definitely the first 50 miles of the Lakeland 100, I was working at a higher rate than that. And I've just really, I don't know where to go with it. Am I just fundamentally not in sub 24 hour? I'm not a sub 24 hour athlete on that terrain because I need to go out quick. Because if I look at the people who did roughly 24 hours, they were going out quicker than. So I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's tricky because in order to, I was looking at the times for South Downs Way 100 and the speed that they go out, then the drop off in the first, maybe like 3 females, a few more males, actually over the back end of the race, they're nearly all moving at the same pace, but the top runner has gone off much quicker. And then has held on. So it's a tricky one, isn't it? You go off harder and then the fallout can be loads or it can be not as much and you stay ahead of those goals. But yeah, I like the idea of going a little bit kinder on your long run. You feel a lot less trashed as well, don't you? Than if you run up every incline. I
was still in that like higher state of the easy pace. So if it dropped into zone 1, then I think, okay, this is a bit too easy. But no, it didn't.
We did exactly the same. I hiked. I ran with friends for my second long run, and we just hiked anything that was like get you out of breath, basically, up the hill. And I kept checking my heart rate, and it'd be like 137, 138, and I was like, well, that's long. That's your long endurance effort. So enjoy it. Also, I love hiking. Love hiking, especially when you've got friends. It makes chatting much easier than when you.
Well, normally, this 17 hills, because it is quite punchy for say 10 or 11 miles. But to hike the inclines made it a much more pleasant couple of hours out on the trails. So summarising, I'm pretty happy with the week considering how I was feeling at the beginning of the week. I just thought it was going to be a write-off. Doing this like mini taper before got me top, so I'm not doing the mini taper now. It's full steam ahead again for Dragons.
Oh my God, here we go. Just for this week, and then next week probably it'll be like.
Well, I'm feeling a bit queasy today, so I don't know what's brewing in my tummy. But all in all, I think 91 miles for the week, including walking, 21 hours of exercise, about 13,000 feet of elevation. Some of the questions that we get asked about, maybe training for ultras here, and I can't do it perfectly because this Lakeland 100 ratio is roughly 2-1, and 91 miles, 13,000 feet of elevation. I should be like 18,000 feet of elevation, roughly. So
I think you're okay. I think those stats are okay.
It's not. I just don't think I could get 18,000 feet. And we were talking actually about people who. I used to be quite focused on marathon running on the tarmac, and although my mileage is probably a bit lower than it used to be, my exercise volume time-wise is probably far greater than what it
most
used
people's.
To be. So, yeah, especially now you've highlighted my gap ratio. I should pay the money for Strava and see what it actually is.
Oh, you don't have to, but doesn't Garmin give you a gap now? I'm sure Garmin gives you the gap.
With some of their new devices, yeah, but not on the...
But actually on the Garmin...
Oh, it might do. I've never checked. I don't check.
Or get a Training Peaks account. It'll give you it as well.
No,
I don't know how, because that's how I... you see, I suppose because I'm really focused on the gap. That's all I look at.
It's just going to be noise, isn't it? Because if my heart rate, if my
you're going on about my 1 to 2 and my 2 to 1 and my 4 to 4, and I'm like, yeah, but what about your pace, buddy?
Yeah. True, fair enough.
Focus on what you need to focus on, and it's much more about the feelings. You feel good, you're ticking your sessions along, and are you enjoying it? That's the most important thing, isn't it?
I did enjoy. On Friday, I went to the gym with my son, which was quite nice. And I thought I was just going to have to take one for the team, and it was just going to be all about George, and I couldn't really do anything as far as workouts concerned. But no, we are little gym buddies there on Friday, so hopefully.
Stop it!
It was great. You know, I modified some of that. I didn't want to get George doing free weights in case so he didn't hurt himself. So we used a lot of the machines to sort of kind of form was easier for him to do, and it was awesome. I definitely came away felt like, yes, I've got to work out too. He was absolutely buzzing. On a Friday, basically a member can take a friend or family as a taster. I don't know how many times we can go for free before I have to.
Just keep taking him in and looking like a lost puppy. And
but it was great.
Was he sore the next day?
Well, no, I didn't want him to be. I said, hopefully you're not going to be sore.
I'd have trashed my kids and have been like, tomorrow you're not going to be able to get down the stairs. Now you know how I feel, don't you, when you go on about mum's rusty old legs? Bit more sympathy.
Yeah, rinse my kids. But I enjoyed it. And I have to admit, I just thought, I'm just going to have to do, take one A for the team. But it was great. I think we both loved it. It was buzzing. And we had fish and chips for tea afterwards. A very nice treat. This week, the coaches answer Pete Walker's question. Pete has had issues with lower shin, top of the foot pain. The longer the races, the worse it gets. I imagine Pete is not alone. This week's brew with the coach's question comes from Pete Walker. Right, Pete's question is a bit specific, but I know I'm not the only one with this issue. On all the really long hilly ultras I've done, I've had issues with lower shin, top of the foot pain, tendinitis. The longer the races, the worse it gets, to the point where every step is completely agonizing. Oh my goodness, I've never done a race where it's like, I'd say an injury or something, an issue was agonizing. This is hopefully you get some help. Pete is doing the Lakeland 100 in the summer and really wants to avoid it becoming a horror show like last time. Oh my goodness. Any suggestions for things to do in advance and during the race? Oh wow, hopefully we can help Pete. What do you think, Rebecca?
Yes, he's absolutely right. It is a common issue that we see quite a lot. People finishing ultras with pain in that particular area, or sometimes it's quite florid. You can actually see some changes of the skin colour over the top of those tendons, quite red. And basically, it's just repetitive picking your foot up. So the tendons that are affected are the ones that run down the front of your leg, go across your ankle into your foot, and they help us raise our foot up. So point your toes back towards you. And you just do that repeatedly on ultras, and particularly rocky ultras, going over tree roots, things like that. Anything we have to pick your foot up that bit higher as well seems to make it worse, I think. And it's just the friction of those tendons moving up and down, up and down, up and down the whole time. They get fluid around them, that then compresses them, causes pain. And that's what you're feeling, is that sort of additional fluid and the inflammation in and around those tendons. It's probably mostly affected in people whose tendons have already got some sort of underlying issue as well. So if they've got tendinopathy, and that basically is where you've got some disrepair of the tendons. So tendons are like cables, lots of different fibers, and it's where you start to lose those some of the fibers. The tendon hasn't quite got the capacity it used to have. So by the end of a long race, it's working really, really hard to keep that movement going, and therefore it just breaks down a little bit more and it causes the discomfort. What can we do about it? Difficult if it comes on in the race. You have to kind of just get on with it, because we can't use things like anti-inflammatories. If you've listened to previous podcasts I was involved in, things like anti-inflammatories are completely no during the race and for that short period of time afterwards as well. So ice, things like that can help. But essentially, it's getting our muscles in the right sort of condition, and the tendons particularly prior to the race. So if you've had this before, my advice would to see a good sports physio who is used to dealing with this sort of problem and can give you some very, very specific exercises to strengthen, particularly tibialis anterior muscle and the extensors of the big toe and the rest of the toes as well. So there's some very specific TheraBand type exercises you can do. Some things even with a kettlebell, sort of lifting your foot up and down from a seated position, things like that. They're all sort of exercises with a trainer. Obviously, it's a bit dangerous if it drops off. But yeah, so that's the high end level. But yeah, so you gradually, progressively load it under sort of supervision from a physio, because you need to start off low with that sort of thing. But if you know you've got that as an issue, then I would put some dedicated strength work into looking at that prior to the race. And you've got a bit of time, haven't you, before Lakeland? So, but get a diagnosis and see a physio, definitely. Yeah.
I've seen this quite a few times, actually. So I saw it a lot in the army, and actually quite recently, I think it's one of the primary injuries that they get on speaking to someone who's physioed on Dragon's Back from last year. One of the primary injuries they have is this, essentially. And from what I've seen, it generally happens when people, now Pete hasn't talked about how much elevation training he does, but generally when there's an increased, the load is too sharp in your training generally. So you go from you're increasing that load too quickly, and obviously you're not having time to adjust to that. So I don't know how much elevation Pete does or how consistently he does it. But from what I found in clients and also in my own personal training, like when I was in the army as well, I used to get that a lot when I was doing a lot of things called this thing called tabbing, which is like really fast walking with boots. And you get that injury a lot. And it's because you're not used to it. So, as Rebecca said, you do need to build up that load, and you do need to do it progressively. So I would say the key thing is, even if you're getting out hiking in the hills, that's all going to help that build. So I think that when I see that injury in people, generally the trend is they've not been consistent enough with their elevation training or consistent enough with their load.
Another big thing is not tying your trainers too tight. If you're doing a massive, I know that's silly, but if you've got your feet will swell during an ultra, especially if it's like you're looking at plus, 24 hours, is actually loosening your trainers. You might start with them a little bit, but looking at the way that the laces lock and how they're tied as well.
I think heel lock lacing, is maybe got a bit to answer to this, because I think that obsession with trying to get your heel as far back in the shoe and everything rammed down on top of the top of the front of the ankle to push it back, I don't think particularly helps either. So yeah, I'd definitely agree with that, is look at that and look at how that affects you. And if you can afford to loosen it off without causing other problems, then probably it's the best way to go if you know this is an issue for you.
Especially later on in the race, having a little, if you get to Delmain halfway at the Lakeland 100 and you've got a little checkpoint, you've got your drop bag there, either go slightly bigger trainer, or just a note to yourself, make sure that you loosen. You're going to be moving a little bit slower then as well. So if the trainer is a little bit looser, it's perhaps not as vital to be locked, and you're not doing a fell race by then. You ever had this rustle over all your mountains?
Yeah, I hear about this one a lot, and I've also had it. I definitely agree with all you guys. Like Trish said, the magic pill that I found is going out walking in the hills. So doing the intended motion at reduced intensity, so you can feel for yourself, is that a good pain that feels like not even like a pain, but like it's helping work the area? So if you have active rest, it helps stimulate blood flow through the tendons and gets the nutrients in there and helps that recovery process. And so walking in hills is amazing. It's incredible how often I can set that as an actual session. The other big one is sleep, and it's kind of like frowned upon because it's a bit boring, but getting your 8-hour sleep, that's when all the human growth hormone and all the good repair and recovery happens, and you have to make sure you're getting that proper full cycle of sleep too, not just on screen 5 minutes before going to sleep, but getting your sleep admin put in place so that your body gets all the time it needs to go through its recovery process naturally.
I love that idea of load. Yeah, tendons love load, don't they? Getting the load right can be tricky, and loading the load. This is always the so hard bit, isn't it? Is like learning to manage the load, and okay, it can take that much load, and now I need to back off, but it will take more. You piling on layers and layers and layers. And I like the idea of walking for any of these. I think it's a highly underrated and used.
Massively underrated, yeah.
Trish is walking in the mountains, and it's so good because if you've got family or a partner or you're going to go somewhere, walking, bit of a pack, your poles, and it's such a good change to the body. And let's face it, over a hilly 100 miles, we're all going to have to, even Russell would have to put a few steps of walking in. If you can. I'm sorry.
It's one time.
Cut, Gary. Cut that bit out.
I love it when people promote sleep, though. And it's almost like I feel sleep is it's part of my a positive aspect of training now. If I get a good 8 hours and I wake up and I eventually check my Garmin sleep score, my heart rate variability, if that's all excellent and stuff like that, I think this is awesome. But maybe 5 years ago people weren't really talking about sleep as a positive, having such a positive impact on training. But 100%, Lakeland 100, most people will be doing quite a bit of walking during that race, so don't feel like walking is not training. It's probably quite old-fashioned to think like that. 13 weeks, I think, roughly between now and Lakeland 100. So
you've
got
this,
time.
Pete. You've got this, Pete.
Good luck.
Good luck.
And hopefully we bump into each other in Coniston. We've got good stories
whining,
not horror stuff.
Whining at Delmain.
Harry will be whacking his shins with his poles just to eliminate.
I know that tendonitis pain though. It's so all-consuming when your feet hurt, isn't it? It's so hard to focus on anything else. Almost any other pain you can run around, but foot pain is really hard to manage when you're tired because every single movement hurts. So do some pre-work and hopefully it'll be better this time. Let us know. This week, we decided that I just want to spend more time with Gary. We have to keep interviewing these guests. People come between our beautiful relationship, and I want to talk more to Gary. So we thought we'd ask you guys, our lovely listeners, anything perhaps you want to know about us a little bit more, some more deets. Let's get deep and dirty. People love that sort of chat. We had loads of questions, so many. I was triple scrolling. So we've sort of collated some of them so that it's interesting to listen to, hopefully a bit helpful, bit of advice as well. Maybe as well you learn a little bit more. Everyone knows enough about me, but maybe a little bit more about Gary. So we thought we'd start this one off. People wanting to know more about you, Gary. Jonathan Zink says, I know enough about Eddie. It's rude, but okay, yeah. You can find loads about me on the internet. Some of it's not true. Some of it's not true. And there is a podcast back in the vaults of when you and I first met. It was Orcs. I'm sure it's Orcs.
It wasn't awkward.
Was it Orcs?
No way.
No way. But we had only just met when we were thrown together. Literally that morning we'd met. And then you had to suddenly become a podcast
It was
co-host.
immediate chemistry, Eddie.
You know that moment our eyes met across Zoom, our teacups clinked, one thing led to the other, and here we are 3 years later. But people will want to know more, Gary. They want to know more about maybe a little bit more of your running history. You allude to being an incredible marathon runner. What was it? What was the younger Gary like? Was he sporty? Did you run from when you were little, or where did this obsession begin?
Running probably at around teenager time, but yeah, always been sporty. Always.
What was your sport of choice when you were at school?
Well, I'm a bloody council estate. Miners' village is football. Football's life, like my kids. Football is life. Football is life. Yeah, 100%. Play classic. Just play football until you couldn't see the ball anymore. That was it. I think I was probably more like Damien Hall. He said he was the substitute. That was me. I was never first on the team sheet, but I would play everything. And then as senior school, we rugby, tennis, athletics. And I did have a memory of as part of Blackhall Air Cadets, and they fast-tracked me to join them officially because they wanted me to run for their cross-country team. So I must have had something there. But
you had an engine, Gary. You had an engine.
Maybe, but then, as an adult, I always ran, but it was very sporadic. I'd probably couple of times a week, just because I was mindful that this is something I should do. I'd cycle quite a lot.
So like in your 20s, what were you doing when you were sort of like starting out?
Oh, wow. Nothing compared. I would never enter an event. I probably enter, I tell a lie, actually. I think one place where I worked, maybe mid-20s, I entered the 10K. Yeah, a bunch of us from work did. I did, which was really fun. It's like obstacle course racing is really popular now, but the original, the tough guy, the Mr. Mouse's tough guy, I did.
Did you see yourself as that tough guy?
I was tough guy. Back in the day, this tough guy was phenomenal. So yeah, there was always a thread of activity, but it was Steve Cram. Well, I did the Great North Run again. That was because it was local to us. But yeah, I had no real focus. I think I mentioned this last time. I'd enter the Great North Run, do nothing until about May, and then panic that I've got this race. And I would just do enough. I just had 2 hours in my head for half marathon, 2 hour half marathon. It was an arbitrary goal. And one year I think I did I was just over 2 hours or just under 2 hours, and I really didn't like how that felt. And then Steve Cram, he did the Marathon of the North, and that was a big catalyst for me to start taking running seriously. I only did it because it started and finished at the Stadium of Light in Sunderland. I just thought, wow, if I'm going to do a marathon, that's exactly where I should do it. I really didn't know how much it would get under my skin. And then
now you've done 100 marathons now, haven't you? You're a part of the
way
elite.
More than 100.
I know, but you were then, so you went from like none in your 20s. When did you fit them all in? Because you're only, 31, aren't you, Gary?
Yeah, I was quite prolific, actually. I'm the classic, I'm going to contradict myself later when we answer some questions about ramping things up slowly. But I think it was 2012.
The obsession began.
Yeah, but 2012, 2013, I can't remember when the first Marathon of the North was. Then I did Edinburgh, but a few weeks later. But then I went on this, just a charge to do
Rampage.
Yeah, I think 1 year I probably did about 30 marathons or something like that. It was pretty crazy. But there'd be some quite quick ones, sub threes in there too. So felt like every weekend, Saturday and Sundays, there'd be some double marathons too. And it was fundraising, I think, made me find the trails. I was raising money for motor neurone disease.
I was going to ask that. When did the switch?
Yeah. Well, I was just really struggling to find local marathons and trying to fit more in. I found the Hardmoors race series which is just down the road from me. And I think it was the Osmotherley Trail Marathon, which was probably about 28, 29 miles. Anyone who knows trails and ultras, they're a bit casual with what their actual distances are compared to what they say they're going to be. So yeah, if you do an ultra in your marathon on the trails and your watch beeps at 28 miles, don't kind of chuck a hissy fit, because that's all part of the course. And that was it really. And then you get exposed to all this other stuff. You get FOMO. Someone's doing the Lakeland 50. You think, oh, what's that? Then someone's doing the Lakeland 100, then the Bob Graham round. And now I've found like the high fells, I really just feel super comfortable with that. Maybe because there's so much walking involved.
And eating.
But it hasn't always been rosy, I never shared this last time. Me finding exercise. I'm going to mention this because...
You found the balance hard, didn't you, of like the obsession, the drive?
Well, this is, when basically me finding exercise. I'll mention it because I think it's important. Some people might be struggling in a relationship and it doesn't always have to end badly, but it probably was the catalyst to the downfall of my first marriage. I completely changed as a person because I was driven to find fitness, find myself, whatever it is I was searching for. And that didn't align with my ex-partner, really.
You became a different person, and you were like suddenly, super motivated to do something else. You probably weren't at home very much, just stinky t-shirts everywhere.
And fair enough to her. She's probably thinking, "What the shit? This is not what I was what Gary was when we met." And it wasn't great, for quite a long time. But things are better now. So if there's anybody there thinking, "Oh my God, my life's so shit, I'm not getting on with my partner," I don't know how it's going to pan out, but yeah, there's definitely, for myself personally at least anyway, there's some light at the end of the tunnel. And I think that's
Gary in a nutshell. We're still talking a little bit about you. Mark Dixon, it's a big question, he says, on everyone's lips, is how much can Gary actually bench press?
God,
what you're pressing down that gym, don't tell me.
When I do my dumbbell
5 kilogram dumbbells, your nemesis.
I'm up to yeah, it is. I think I 22 and a half kilos on each dumbbell. So whatever that is, 45 kilos.
Not too shabby. Not too sure. I don't think I pick up a 22 kilogram. Whenever I pick up my 16 kilogram kettlebell, I'm like, well, it's so heavy.
I wonder, it'd be interesting just to do a one-off bench press. What I could do. What do you think you could do?
I find a bench press quite scary, a heavy one, because it's underneath your face. I'm like, I don't like this beautiful face. I can't scar this.
I'd be super scared. I'd need somebody to, maybe George, when he can be my spotter.
He can be your spotter. I'll spot you then. Woohoo! Sorry, I got. I have a question for you, Gary. What did you think when you first started the podcast? And this is how has your relationship with the podcast evolved? Do you enjoy doing the podcast? How do you feel about sharing your? Yeah, I know. He hates it when I don't prepare it, but I was thinking about this. Do you enjoy sharing your daily, weekly diary of running? Do you find that it motivates you to keep training? Have you found that because you've had this whole lifetime now relationship of running, and it's gone from road running to marathons, new relationship, running has played a heavy thread, and now you share it with the world every week. Running... How do you find that relationship? Because you could become I've got to keep running because I've got to share it on the podcast.
When I started the YouTube channel, my relationship to running changed, and that's probably why I don't really run around with the GoPro that much anymore, because I mocked
you within an inch of the middle-aged man with a GoPro.
But I love these conversations. I love catching up with you on the mic. I love this. I'm not so keen on the edit. I know you say I love the edit.
No, I don't. I never say. Well, I just make guests feel that they can and ah, because I'm like, Gary does the edit. Sorry, I know you don't. No, you don't.
No, I absolutely love it. I love sharing what we do. When we ended the old podcast, it really dawned on me how much we connected with people, and I wasn't really probably fully aware of that or appreciated that. So that's become really important. I love meeting people out on the trails. I think I was quite reluctant to come on the podcast. I'm not too sure if I've ever mentioned that to you.
Whatever. You were like, sign me up. Where's the contract?
No, you ask Neil. To be honest, you've probably got Neil to thank, or I'm not too sure if thanks the right word, but he convinced me to do it. I was like, what? Why me? I didn't really get. I knew I could chat. I knew I could edit, but I'm not really an enormous fan, or I'm not a massive fanboy of the sport. And this probably sounds really terrible saying that, but I don't say UTMB week. I'm not glued to the dots as far as that's concerned. So I was a bit unsure of myself and how I would sit in the podcast. But yeah,
But we don't pretend to be that on the podcast, do we? We used to read out race results, which we've ummed and ahed about whether we bring that back, because we did quite enjoy that. But we don't pretend to be, we're bringing on the news from the European trails. There's enough podcasts that do that as well. We try, I think our focus has slowly evolved into much more sharing our my day-to-day struggles of life, staying alive. So people can relate to it, and building the community so people feel, that they're not alone out there on the trails, and encouraging people to get out there. And hopefully we don't just talk about the terrible, the stiff old aching legs, but the joy it brings us as well. We try and bring that into the podcast.
hope people can identify with us. We lived very different lives.
Gary, very different. I'm from
So hopefully there's something out there for everybody. And like I said earlier, I just didn't really appreciate how much it would get under my skin. It really, and it was quite emotional when we ended the last podcast, and I didn't expect it. Didn't expect that. But yeah, I hold the podcast. It's amazing how precious it is to me.
It's yes, I love that. I hold it dearly, you and the podcast dearly to my heart. And we share a lot on the podcast, but there's also a lot behind the scenes that obviously people don't need to hear. They don't want to hear about highs and lows of family life, but we share it with each other. And you're a big support, Gary, to me. And you'll never complain when I go, sorry, got to change the time. Can't do that. You're the kindest guy I know. Right, let's move on. Enough about you. Quite a few questions from people wanting to know that listen to all, and When we choose the guests for the podcast, we try and choose a range of guests. It's obviously very hard to find guests. We've done now, like, I looked back, we've done probably maybe like 200 episodes together. We've done a lot. So finding guests for podcasts, new guests, fresh content is not easy. And you don't know when you approach people what they're going to be like on the podcast. So then it's quite a lot of work goes on behind the scene. And so we always try and find like different stories, people's stories. And sometimes we've been surprised. We've had some epic ones where you and I have been like, that was incredible. I don't think we've ever had a duffer where we've been, maybe a couple where we've hung up and gone, oh. But really, most people, 99.9% of people come on the podcast are an absolute joy. And we feel so privileged to be able to share their stories. And I think sometimes the stories, because often the stories are incredible, people feel like I'm not that person, like relating to that person. You know, these are elite athletes, but nearly always people are from pretty normal backgrounds, not, you know, they haven't been to like a school with sports scholarships and all sorts of like lots of people have found running later in their life. So where I'm getting with this is lots of people have asked us, how do I start my journey into ultra running? It seems like, you know, do I need to be an elite runner? Do I need to be doing hours and hours of training? Where do I even begin? You know, I've got 4 or 5 months. What do I do? Yeah, become this ultra runner. Firstly, I think anybody can be an ultra runner. It's basically a long jog, walk, picnic, good time with friends. Your first ultra, I think, and probably for your first ultra too, Gary, the main thing is just finishing. Doesn't matter. You want to finish and you want to enjoy it.
And
everything
they're super
else.
friendly too. A lot of the ultras, I can't think of one where a cutoff has scared me. So they definitely designed to encourage every level of athlete, from beginners to, you know, people who are hopefully getting on the podium.
And if you're choosing your first ultra and you're not sure, I would say choose something local so that you haven't got to add in travel, logistics, time away from family. If things do go wrong, you've got a get out option. You can get home quite easily afterwards. You can potentially have support out on the trail. You can recce the route. Don't choose something which is beyond your skill set. If you're not used to being in the mountains, you choose something that you can train from home. When you've become more experienced in ultras, then you can choose like some of the big European trail races that need a lot of climbing, some of the more technical Lakeland, which will involve a bit more mountain experience. But if you're looking for your first ultra, choose something that you can comfortably do from your house. And then that takes out a big bit of worry and a big bit of timing and logistics. You can do that all later on. You can enjoy all the juggle of 4 a.m. wake-ups to drive to the Lake District to do. But choose something really sensible. And I would say also, like, distance wise, build up slow, like choose 50k. A 50k is a perfect distance. A classic distance. Do you need to have done a marathon before you do a 50k? Can you jump straight in? What do you think?
I had obviously done quite a few marathons, but I think because of the nature of the terrain, usually, you know, again, not all ultras are equal, but we're assuming there's some hills involved. Mm-hmm. So you're going to break it up with walking and running too, and some downhill running, some snacks, hopefully some nice snacks along the way. So I think, you don't have to have done a trail marathon or a marathon before.
And I think also your training, probably give yourself 6 months if you're thinking about your first ultra. You don't need to specifically train for that ultra for 6 months, because I think mentally that's too long. But it allows you to really slowly build up the volume. We had lots of questions from people saying, when I build up the volume, I get injured. If I throw too much volume in too soon, I start getting niggles. So I think learning your threshold, like I know still I have my threshold of between 13 to 15 hours running. If I do any more running than that, it's too much. I can't recover and I start feeling niggly. But that's taken me years and years to build up to that. Before I used to be at like 6-7 hours, and that was total. So sort of find your hours. And if you say, you know, I'd like to be doing a little bit, I've got time to do a little bit more volume, I can recover from a little bit volume. Cross training is always going to be your friend. And cross training as hiking is a brilliant form of secret ultra training that loads of people undervalue, I think, because unless you're Tom Evans or Camille Herron, a lot of your ultra is going to be switching between hiking and jogging. And so putting it into your plan is a great way. If you are feeling that, I do get niggles, then swap a run for a hike.
I've seen so many times when I've been trying to hike, people who actually spend more time hiking during their training just leave me for dust, and I'm finding myself, I'm jogging along slowly. I think you said it.
Leon and Lizzie, look at the
yeah.
army guys. Oh my God, my husband, when they switched to that fast hike, I'm doing this like uncomfortable jiggle to keep along next to them. Yeah. So don't be scared to do like, I would do like, when I spine trained, 3/4 of my volume was hiking, and I did not regret that. And it's a great way to incorporate family as well into training, is that everyone can go out hiking, and it's time on your feet. And I think if you are taking family hiking, don't then look at it as your mate, look at it as a recovery or just time on your feet. Just don't sit down for the picnic, for the snacks. Just stay on your feet. You might not cover as much distance or vert as you'd like, but you're still on your feet and you're still moving. So if you're thinking about getting into an ultra, do it. Just find something local, take your time with the build up. Think about all the other things in an ultra that you need to. But if you give yourself a lot of time, you can experiment. So big things that you need to check: kit, what kit you need, find a backpack that's comfortable. Fueling is a big thing. You're potentially going to be out on the trails a lot longer than a marathon. You're looking at, you could be 6, 8, 10 hours. So you've got to fit in daily calories as well as your moving calories. You're never going to be able to top up as much, but fueling is a big thing that you want to practice, and we still don't get it right. So we had Ian Brazier, Marisa Fraze, and Ros Blackmore all asking us about nutrition. A couple of them were like, we're bored of gels, we don't want that sugary hit, what else can we use? And lots of people are saying about feeling sick when they're eating as well.
Are they training? This is really, because are they during the week, are they basically eating nutrition on their runs? Because then, when they do their races or the big long run of the weekend and they're just ramming all this sugar in, that is really going to trigger them. I'm, especially now more so with the podcast, I eat a lot more on my training runs than what I ever did. And hopefully that's going to carry out and I'm not going to have any issues on the bigger days.
Fueling through the session is a sentence I like to use a lot in my coaching. So you're fueling, I like to fuel anything over an hour. I'll shove something in my mouth, and that is just practice. I'm fueling through the session. So I'm not just fueling for the session that I'm doing, but I'm also fueling for the recovery. So I'm not getting home absolutely poleaxed.
Yeah.
Also, if you're busy like us, you get home, you straight away handed the kids or whatever. If you go in under fueled, and they go, your husband or wife, whoever is like, I'm out the door now, or, you're down on the floor, you're changing a nappy, you're playing Lego, you suddenly got to take the kids to football. If you're not then fueled, you'll run, and then you lose that glycogen window of refueling as well. You're really suffering a lot. So keep that fuel going in all the time for most sessions over 100. And I also am really big on the recovery fueling straight after a session. So always have a protein shake or something solid. If I've got like banana, even just a cup of milk as soon as I finish any session I do, because of the volume of training that I do. Rehydration, carbs, electrolytes. So eating during an ultra, this is a skill you need to learn. It's a joyful skill. You shouldn't be a problem. If you're struggling with eating, you're probably going too fast. You're probably running too fast, and then the gut doesn't want to absorb the fuel and it's going, I feel a bit sick. Sometimes when it's hot as well, it's hard to absorb fuel. But this is where in training you want to practice your fueling so that you've got loads of tricks up your sleeves of what works and what doesn't work. And I'm really sorry, but it's a bit like having a toddler. Some days they might really like strawberries, and some days they're going to throw it at your head and say, don't like it. You can't, it's really hard to go, I've got my nutrition now, this is what I have, this is when I take it, because it's not going to go like that. You're always going to have to problem solve. Listen to any podcast with Tom Evans. An ultra is all about problem solving and finding solutions, and it's a person that can find the solutions that gets to that finish line.
Well, did I mention I did a Bob Graham round once?
Oh my God, a Bob Graham round. You've done a Bob Graham round.
I had every food choice available. The only thing I could eat on that day was Kinder Mint cake. and it was triggering, but it was staying down at the same time.
And nerves play a big part, don't they, too? Suddenly you'll find if it's your first time, you've never felt these nerves before, your tummy can go, and then it can be really hard to eat or drink, especially in the opening stages as well, where perhaps everybody shoots off really fast. So
what would be, so you're out for a big hike, a big run at the weekend. What would be in your backpack?
I'm a big believer in a nice sandwich, Gary. I always have Tailwind, 2 scoops of Tailwind in my bottles. If it's a cooler day, I'll just have a scoop and a bit of Tailwind. But if it's a hotter day, I up the strength a little bit for a bit more electrolyte. So I always have calories to drink. Doesn't have to be Tailwind, but that's what I found works for me. The neutral flavor. So I just down that. So always know if I'm not eating, I am actually getting calories and electrolyte in on the drink. So always Tailwind, non-negotiable. I will drink that throughout every race training, any session. I'll have Tailwind on me to keep sipping that going in. And then a long session, I will try and eat as much, solid food. So I'm a big sandwich fan. I make a lovely little honey and peanut butter sandwich. I cut the crusts off. I make them into little squares, and I'll snack on that. I like a flapjack. I like solid stuff for a long run. If I will take some gels, I do find that actually in training, probably my intensity is so low, I can stomach a lot of solid food. The Velo Forte gel shots, I love.
Yeah, we're big fans.
Top tip for those, because the packaging, keep meaning to tell them, the packaging isn't very user-friendly for those gel shots, because once you open them, and you're trying to get them out, there's quite a lot of packaging, cold hands, hot hands, tired hands. So what I do is I open them when I'm at home, and then I just pour it into my little Ziploc bag, and then it's easy.
I wonder what the reason is. Yeah, we should have a conversation.
Anything that you have to tear, which requires some sort of proprioception in the fingertip. I don't have any feeling as well after the spine in my fingertip.
Well, that's why I like decanting my gels into a soft flask, so I'm not tearing anything, especially on a race when I want less and less faff. But it sounds pretty similar. I use the Active Root instead of the Tailwind, 500 mils of that. I might even take a spare sachet too if I need to fill up mid-run.
Yeah.
A pasty or a sandwich, I'm not too fussed. Packet of crisps, they're usually stuffed in the backpack.
Packet of crisps, you can't go wrong. Yeah. Salt and vinegar. I tell you what, salt and vinegar crisps and a can of Coke for a midway treat. You can't go wrong. You can't go wrong with that. I think people basically, you need to think about like a toddler's birthday party. Go back to the toddler analogy again of what you might fancy. Bit of cheese. Love a bit of cheese. A Baby Bell, very portable on a long run. A variety of textures and tastes is really good as well. So as I said, if you do feel that nausea kicking in, then you can mix it up as well. And remember, one big thing, like if you are feeling sick and you're running, you've got to keep the calories going in. There's only so far your brain is going to let you go before it tells you that it's time for a DNF. So don't be scared to slow down and walk and just get those calories in. You can nearly always turn yourself around from a vom fest as well. I'm afraid it's a reality of ultra running, is that sometimes the stomach just says no, and you can be quite sick on the trails and think this is all over. But very often you can, in the words of me, some other people, puke and rally, and you can be quite sick, but you don't feel it's game ending. Slow down, get some fluids, sip, just keep sipping on the fluids, and it will turn around. But it's having that confidence that it will turn around when you feel really bad. I think I've talked about it before. I did a multi-day once where the first day I put all my Tailwind into the bottles by mistake for the day. As I was sipping it, I was like, oh, this is really strong. It turned my stomach and I couldn't eat. And I was so sick for the whole day. I had like 4 more days that I had to do. Oh, it was terrible. But then that evening, I just pounded the calories, believed in the body, and you do come back to it. So the biggest thing of nutrition is trial and error, isn't it? Trial and error, find lots of different things that work for you. Also, find out what's on offer at checkpoints if you're doing a race, because
great tip, yeah.
Some varying good checkpoints, bad checkpoints. You can get to checkpoint and there'll be a dry bourbon or the worst, or a jelly baby. Well, they cannot have enough, and people have gone through like a plague of locusts and
I never thought of that. If you're maybe kind of mid to the back of the pack, then yeah, you could be slim pickings when you get to a checkpoint. That's a good point.
Yeah, if Gary's been through, there won't be anything left. So
there'll be no egg sandwiches left.
Find out what's on offer at the checkpoint. You know, I know that the Centurion races offer tailwind at the checkpoint. So it's worth trying tailwind. If it works for you, you don't have to carry it, because you can have your bottles topped up with tailwind. Some races, like the UTMB ones, I think, are they sponsored by Morton now? I don't know, but yeah, find out, look and see what's on offer at the checkpoint, and then use it in your everyday.
A carb per hour? Do you pay attention to that?
I personally don't worry about the science that is aiming, but I know what I do is I know that this bar is that much calories or grams of carbohydrate. So I know I basically need 3 things an hour, plus I've got the tailwind going in there. And I think keep it super simple, because the ultra brain after a few hours is very easy if you're doing like a track race or a looped race to be really mindful of what's going in. But I find a longer trail race, it can become quite tricky and maybe a bit worrying that how much have I eaten? I think, Garmin on your watches, you can set up a food drink alert, eat and drink alert. I think that's really good and a very good idea if it's one of your first ultras, to remind you.
I would do that to time too. I used to, the transition from the roads to the trails for myself, my alert, I would go every 3 miles for something to eat. But then obviously on the trail, 3 miles could be
20 to 30 minutes. And don't be scared to start early. Start even pre-race, 20 to 30 minutes before the race starts, have something. And then 20 to 30 minutes into the race. Or sometimes I like to let it settle a little bit, because the heart rate can be quite high in that first hour, as the nerves and the pace might be a little bit faster. So I tend to just drink in the first hour and then move on to my food plan.
I'm the opposite. I'll maybe try and cram it, because I know later on maybe I might lose my appetite. So I think I've got those.
It's a dangerous game to play, that, the cramming. Food
But it's all about, everyone.
You're trained for that though, Gary. You live by the cramming, the food.
Yeah. The big takeaway for me though is when you're training, use that nutrition too. I did not do that until recently, and hopefully that'll serve me well on the days when I need to keep stuff down.
It's quite shocking, isn't it, when sometimes you run with people and they're like, I haven't got any food. Okay, so the other one we thought was quite interesting was tips for crewing from James Buxton. She is crewing for a friend who is running 2 100 milers, not back to back, I think separately. She has helped him. The longest he's done so far is 100K, and she's now supporting him on these 2 100 milers. She feels requires proper crewing, and I'm a sucker. She's novice, so wondered if there's any advice for crewing events to keep herself sane, or what she can do for to provide assistance. She says she's not very good without sleep. Okay, so firstly, I think before we address the crew question, we have to say thank you to anybody who does any crewing. It is a thankless task and it is exhausting, isn't it? Oh my gosh, big kudos to my husband who's crewed me at a number of ultras, and it's not fun. I mean, the joy when you finish, is it fun when they finish? God, I think you're just relieved, aren't you?
I think I'm always quite a chirpy runner, so I'm not like a miserable git when I rock up to the whatever checkpoint. When
you add in the kids into crewing as well, we learned that when the kids were really little, when I was still feeding the kids, so we'd have to stop so that I could feed a baby on the ultra. We did that with the logistical nightmare of like 3 child seats, a very small baby, a medium-sized toddler, and one that could actually move and could get away. Bryn driving around these country lanes crewing for me. I think once we threw the 3rd baby into the mix, that was the end of Bryn crewing for me. It was just That's easier for them not to be there. Also then the finish line, because then they'd be like, I'd have 3 kids and they'd be all over me and be like, Mum, and I'd be like, Mummy just needs to lie.
I feel sorry for the kids. If I'm ever at a race and I see crew and they brought their kids along with them, I just think, you poor
it's poor thing. And then they don't understand Mum or Dad running to them. They've been waiting for ages for Mum or Dad to appear. They appear, big applause, and then they disappear, and you hear the wails from the pram. It's so lovely, but it means a lot to the mum or the dad to have the kid watching and to have the finish line, but the poor person that has to do the childcare goes well with crewing. So I would say try not to mix the two. If you possibly can have child support and then crewing as well, it does make it easier. And you also learn what works and what doesn't when you have small children. And, oh my God, that was an error. It's all individual, but it's all part of the process. So I think for being a crew, first thing first is I think you need to meet with your athlete and work out their goals and aspirations for the race to make sure that what you are crewing them for aligns with what they are wanting out of you as well, because they might want a softly approach, or they might be like, no, I don't want any show me no love, show me no mercy, just provide that. There's definitely low maintenance athletes to crew for, and then there's high maintenance athletes. Gary alludes to being a low maintenance
would
athlete.
You like somebody, would you say they're looking great even if they were looking terrible?
Yeah, I think your role in the crew is to be like, perhaps like, you're looking a bit hungry, looking a bit tired, what can I do? I think, again, this is where the toddler analogy fits in. You basically tell them, Jane, you tell them what's going on. I think as an ultra runner, once you get into that like deep, you're going into the night, you're going into a long time, you want somebody to go, okay, here's your stuff, here's your new bottles, give me your wrappers. What are you eating? What do you feel like? And if they go nothing, you go, well, just eat this, try this, keep tempting them with food, give them some splits if that's what they want. You got this far to the next checkpoint. And I think as well, that comes into the pre-planning of the crewing as well. Like, do they want to know where they are in the race? Do they want to know how far they've got to go? Do they want to know? Some
people love that information. Some people really, especially when it's not going so well, maybe they don't want that. They don't want that information. I would, if possible, have a buddy with you, because it's a lot to do on your own. All that driving and lack of sleep. Yeah, if you could get
for 100-miler, I think you want but you want someone driving and someone doing the map reading, because it's so stressful. Like especially like around some, like down at the Arc, where I know they rely heavily on the crews. Somebody's doing a lot of driving down country lanes in the middle of the night. Having two people, it makes it more fun as well.
If you can afford the time, it might be worth a crew recce too, because you've been, say, in the middle of the night down a lane and your postcode and GPS don't kind of marry up with where it should be, and your runners come in. I think, was it Ellis Bland? I'm sure, did he miss Elsie Davis at one of the checkpoints at the Arc?
She was so fast.
I'm not too sure. I think I'm remembering that correctly. So crew, but I appreciate that's kind of pretty time intensive to do a recce of the race from a crew's point of view. What I give to
Bryn basically now is I print off all the crew locations with a postcode, what I want at that, if I want bottles there, if I want food, and then he's got all the distances as well. I prepare all that for him, because also it's quite good mentally for pre-race preparation as well. You're working out the checkpoints where you want to see them. If there's anything that maybe I want to do, I want my head torch. If I don't have to carry a head torch as mandatory kit, or I want poles, or I want, change my trainers here. It's all written down for him, because your crew has got to move themselves from site to site. And so if they then can just get there and have a crib sheet as well.
And it's their race. They do have to own the responsibility for that. It is their...
Exactly. You're there as a support person, as a crew, aren't they? But I think often you see it, don't you? If you're watching a race, or you see other people can be really rude to their crew and demanding and act like divas. Don't be that. Don't be a trail diva. You're just out running, and this poor person is... I'm sorry, Gary, but it's nearly always middle-aged men shouting at their wives.
I've seen it so many times. It makes me super cross.
This isn't the Olympics, and be mindful, be polite and quiet and grateful and a little bit humble.
When I the times people have crewed for me, Bob Graham Round, Hardmore's 110, I would have basically mini bags labelled up, whatever it was. Like
organisation,
and all they had to do was make sure that bag was in the boot of the car at that point. And then there would be this like just random selection of stuff. If everything went well, yes, I wanted exactly what was in that bag, but we talk
often
about nutrition.
than not, you go, "Where's that baby bell? I just want the baby bell."
The rice pudding, my goodness me. I never ate rice pudding in my life on a race until I might have been at Carlton Bank on the Hardmoors 110. And that was this lifesaver.
Once when I was crewing for Bryn, he was doing a ring of fire round Anglesey. And he was the best person I've ever crewed for. I'd forgotten a spoon for his rice pudding. So I got out my Waitrose, back in the day when I had a Waitrose, loyalty points card. I was like, give him a nice one. I'll give him a posh one so he won't be too cross with a spoon. He was amazing all 3 days. Like I would say medium to high maintenance to be crewed, because I'm looking for speed at the turnarounds. I get in, I want stats, I want my bottles changed, I want the stats. I'm going to give a bit of a moan. It's not to the person crewing, but I just like to share the fact normally that this is so hard. I just need to vocalize it. I don't really need anything back. And then
to release.
I release it, and Bryn normally goes, "You're doing really well." And that's about all that we chat about. Anyway, when I crewed for him, he's just so lovely. And then on the last day, that Ring of Fire is a big 3 days, big long, they're 60, 70 mile days back to back. And it's normally really hot. The last day I met him at the last trip, and he was like, "Oh, I'm just a bit tired now." And I remember thinking, it's like, at last I've broken him. It's like, yes. I was like, it's okay, you can say that. We always say what stays on the trail goes on the trail. If I have been a little bit tetchy, then we know it doesn't mean anything at the finish line. One big thing you can do if you're a newbie to ultra running is offer to crew or volunteer at checkpoints. That is a great way to learn your trade. And don't be scared. I've seen people going, "Oh, you shouldn't volunteer at like mile 70 of 100 mile. It'll put you off for life." I don't think it will. I think it's really good to see what people look like at mile 70, because then when you're in that state yourself, it's not frightening, because you're like, I've seen it. It's also amazing to see how people can come into checkpoints absolutely ruined and turn it around and head out again, and see the different way people handle themselves in checkpoints that is positive and makes a big difference to how that they can go out, to the people that are dramatic and come in, make a lot of noise and lie down. And they're normally the ones that can get out, because like any casualty, if they're making a lot of noise, we've all done our bronze life-saving. You leave those ones and you go to the poor quiet one that's white and shaking in the corner.
It drove me crazy on Lakeland 100 last year. I'd get into a checkpoint and Dougie's Innes would be there, sitting down with a cup of tea. I'd be in and out like a Formula One racing car, and then he'd just catch me up again and go past me every time.
Gary? All right.
Yeah. I was like, God damn it.
No, it was the same in the spine, and people would be like, spend hours, and I'd have like 2 hours and be like, gotta get out of here. I keep racing, and they'd be like, I had a 4-hour sleep.
The good thing with crewing also later on in a race, if you crewed at the spine, maybe Hawes, that could have been quite frantic. But Middleton, and then definitely further on.
Yeah, I'd say crew later on in a race. People are slower through checkpoints, and you probably needed a bit more. The first 10 miles of 100 mile, and most people won't even stop. Jane, good luck when you're crewing. You sound like a legend. You're going to help out your mate. You'll learn lots, and hopefully get them to successful finishes. If not, it's nothing to do with you. Last bit of twittering for us from Grant Smalley. He wants to know, we can do a one-off ultra. Okay. I've added some caveats into this to make it more exciting. You and me, we've got to do this together. Okay. We've got to come up with the distance, checkpoints, what sort of terrain we're running, our perfect ultra. We've got a free week. Okay. So we can make it at any distance we want. And we can have anything we want at checkpoints. What are we doing, Gary? What distance are we doing?
Could it be a multi-day event? I'm really liking the camp life at the end of the day.
If it's a multi-day, I'm going to need to do it with more people than you, because, at the end of the day, I don't really want to be running with you all day and then sharing a tent with you all day. Yeah, I think a multi-day, having done a multi-day without camp life, it sucks. Much nicer to stop at the end of the day, to have a finish line at the end of every day.
It wasn't a multi-day. I did one of the Ranger Ultra events. So it was 2 independent races, but it was on a Saturday and Sunday, so you could stay in the village hall. I just love the aspect, however they do it, if they could build a little mini community for 24 hours, 48 hours, whatever it is. Even to the Helvellyn, I didn't do it this year, but the previous time I did it, I slept in the hall the night and after the race. So you're just immersed in this bubble. I just lap up that kind of environment. That's a big tick for me. If that's
okay, so you're wanting to get me on a multi-day, a lot of Eddie time, overnight Eddie time as well. How many days are we looking at? What sort of distance are we covering every day? What's our terrain? I like a point-to-point, Gary. I really like a point-to-point race. I like the journey. What about sort of like a Cape Wrath, sort of like start of the borders up to the top of the country or something like that?
Anything like the Northern Traverse, coast to coast, that kind of thing. But that's massive, isn't it? So we can need to find a little smallest point in the country to go point.
The niches. Okay, the niches across the country. And what sort of length day are we looking at? I reckon about like 50 to 70k.
I'm going to start aching though a couple of days in. Yeah, I suppose that.
With maybe some big days. We maybe start with like a 50k, and then we have a big day where I break you.
Well,
and
50k would be enough for me. I always resonate with what Mark said. It's not always about more. Find what you enjoy.
It is, Gary.
For me,
we want a bit of energy for nighttime. What's our snack of choice on this ultra? What are we looking at? We've got checkpoints every 10k. Okay, so we don't need to carry massive packs. This is not 5k. We'd have to get the stove out. Chips, good
chips,
call.
Chip butty. Would a chip butty be too much?
Just chips? Maybe at the end. But I'm thinking Coke. Can't go wrong.
Dandelion burdock, Coke, that's fine.
Or don't mix them up. Make sure Gary's table is separate to mine then.
Egg sandwiches.
Crisps. No, egg sandwich. Yeah, some sort of sandwich. Sandwich and crisps, basically.
It's got to be wet. It's got to be a wet sandwich. Tea.
Well, you need some condiment in your sandwich. Tea. And then, every checkpoint, there's a perfectly tepid cup of tea that you can drink quite quickly. A big mug though, and a mug, not like a plastic cup, because we're a sustainable ultra. We need a mug with a handle. And then at the end, when we get to our big tent, it's all set up for us. We don't have to do anything. We don't even need to unpack our bag. Someone's laid out our roll mat, our sleeping bag for us. And then in the food tent, it's basically just chips and ketchup and tea.
Quiche is another good one.
Oh, quiche is a great call. Quiche, and then just tea, pizza on tap. We finish about 3:00 in the afternoon, so we can fit in 2 meals. So we can have snacks and tea, a little sleep. Separate tents, Gary. Okay, let's just keep the magic alive a little bit.
Too much, yeah.
And then we go back for like chili or something in the evening. Yeah. And you're on beanbags, and they've just got a bit of like Netflix going on, so we can watch a bit of the downtime.
Night Agent.
That might be a bit too much adrenaline for me. Something a little bit more low, a bit Friends, a little bit more low key.
Yeah, and what would you like for your bling, Eddie?
Well, in an incredible coincidence, Grant, who actually asked this question, actually does this at his races. Earth's Runs medals, which is a medal which you can then plant and becomes flowers. I love that idea.
That's a great idea, isn't it?
I love the memory that those flowers would then create of your race. So I would be happy with that. Or maybe, like often in France, we get a carton of fresh local produce, honey, cheese, meat, saucisson. Wouldn't be eating the saucisson myself, but oh my God, the kids go crazy for the saucisson. I like the idea of a local produce hamper to snack on the way back as well, because I'm exhausted because also I won. So
I love a mug. I'll get a mug. That's quite a good one.
Oh, you can't go wrong. Something that will keep the memory alive. I'm not that bothered about a medal. I like the idea more of a memory or something in the house then that you use every day, or as a little prompt, like the flowers outside of something you did. Tough days.
How magic is that though? The medal turns into, you can plant the medal.
I love that. I love that idea. Like the Teas for Trees is amazing idea, but you don't actually see your tree. Yeah. You get your coordinates of where it's planted, but something that you can actually do yourself as well is a really great idea. So 4 or 5 days, our multi-day ultra. There's mainly just a lot of eating and laughing, a lot of hiking. So we'd be going on some quite hilly terrain, so we'd feel quite comfortable hiking. And every day we'd have fresh competitors of different mates coming to join us to add to the chat. You could just jump in for one day, and dogs would, of course, be welcome. Dogs would be welcome. All well-behaved or badly behaved dogs would be welcome and happy to share our tents with us.
I saw a multi-day race in the Pyrenees, which I really fancy to go at. I can't remember what it's called. It just popped up on my social media. I thought, that bit of sunshine. I love Spain. And it's such a wonderful time in Valencia, and the Pyrenees would be great. And I think the accommodation looked quite nice. I think you stayed in hotels, so
maybe we need to move our multi-day over here. Then you need to come over. We can go from refuge to refuge. Maybe we'll do that in training before.
Yes,
our Gary and Eddie's. I think we're pretty much race directors. We've planned the whole thing.
Yeah. I thought Petra Bisterveld's question was quite interesting. Yeah, any thoughts on support crew and support runners in ultras? Race organisers have a very varying approach. Some events are positively encouraged to bring crew, e.g. the Arc of Attrition, and others explicitly forbid any type of outside help. And some are somewhere in the middle. So you can see that having crew when other people might not could offer an unfair advantage. Any strong feelings on your part and experiences? Any strong feelings, Eddie?
Oh, I think you're really lucky if you have crew. I do think it's a bit unfortunate if crew is allowed, and it does make a big difference to a race. I'm sorry what everyone says that yes, if there's well stocked checkpoints and people are helpful at the checkpoints, that's massive, but that doesn't happen in every race. And so having a crew mentally as well as physically does make a huge difference, especially like some races where sometimes if you've got a crew, you don't need to go into the checkpoint, which might be like inside coming out again. It all adds up time. You're much more efficient with a crew. I do feel slightly it should be across the board, like you either have crew, like West Highland Way, where you have to have crew, or you don't have crew. Because it could almost become two different races then, couldn't it? If you have got crew and you haven't got, how the time difference could make. But sometimes as well in a race, you don't want to have a crew, because I know when I did my first 100 miler, I didn't want to have a crew. I didn't want to have a pacer because I wanted to do it myself and prove myself that I could do it without any outside assistance. And then now the next one I'm doing, all the crew, all the pacers, everybody come for the party. So there's different times, and it depends what you want out of the race as well, I guess. What do you think, Gary?
Well, I think you're right. It's 100%. It's a huge advantage. I remember being on a run and pacers and crew were allowed, and a runner behind me had a pacer. And he just kept catching me up.
Oh, yeah.
And then maybe the next section, the guy wasn't running with him. And then he joined him again for a few miles. And it was just like, this is driving me nuts. But yeah, I'm all for the race organisers. If they want to allow crew, that's perfectly up to them. If they don't, that's their choice too. Sometimes if you're not local, you are a bit of a disadvantage that you can't do that. But where I do, I get really, really annoyed when athletes, and maybe they have crew, when the race says do not have crew. That really makes me, because I did Harmos 110 1 year, and you're not supposed to have anybody at Kildale because it's a super quiet village. And I remember running out of Kildale up to Bloth Crossing, and there was a car up there which should not have been there. I saw that car multiple points during the race, and I just think, God, if they cock that up and the people at Kildale just go, enough is enough. And I think even the Lincoln 100, I'm pretty sure I saw some bad feedback from the checkpoint crew that people were going to Mardale Head to see runners. It's a one road in, one road out place with a tiny car park. I think if the rules are in place, you've got to do that. If you're not supposed to have a support runner and you're running with somebody on that race, that is, for me, I don't like that.
No, and it annoys you during the race as well, doesn't it? If people are popping up and you're like, you're not meant to be there, and it's like, you're ruining my race because what? And I know, like at Centurion races, they're really strict about it because of, like you said, like getting the licenses to run on the trail requires, this is how many people you're allowed on the trail. We're not allowed so many cars here. And that's why they have like the different checkpoints where crew can meet, where crew can't meet. And James will DQ runners if the crew do the wrong thing. So you as a crew also, your runner hopefully has educated you on where you can go and where you can't, because it's the whole race that you're putting in jeopardy. And we are running on trails, and we are, you're running through villages and things at strange times of the night. You don't want to be a presence. You just want to be a little fairy floating through. So, Gary, as we don't have a guest, you are going to be in charge of the Instagram music. It's your dream come true. And because if it was me, it would be Disney Classic, Disney Classic mashup, and you would actually probably retire. So yeah, okay. What are you going to? You be mindful of your choice here.
Well, this is it. Yeah, I could be. My favourite songs are Billy Bragg, There Is Power in a Union. I love that song. World Turned Upside Down. It's not a Billy Bragg song, but I prefer his version. Rage Against the Machine, Killing the Name Of, their big favourite. Who else? We got Mystery Jets.
Can you think of something maybe like, that's maybe relatable to both of us? Something about, the countryside, trails, freedom. No, it all has to be Rage Against the Government, take them all down.
I love the Billy, the World Turned Upside Down, because that is about kind of people's access to land, which is quite appropriate.
Okay.
But yeah, that makes it heavily political. No, if I was going to go for a on the fence song, it would be a Simple Song by the Shins. There you go.
Okay. I don't know it. I'm going to find it and listen to it.
It's a lovely song.
Gary, it's been lovely having extra chat with you. Hope people have pulled out a little bit of information from our twittering.
We've got so many more questions. Are we going to fit them
Gary's
in?
I'm like, Gary, honestly, I've got stuff to do today. He's like, let's just answer one more. I'm like, my mouth is now like a kipper. It's so
Salmon.
dry. Can only have got the salmon lips definitely going on. Can only have so much. Goodness. We'll save the question. So if your question didn't get answered, we will save them up. We will do a bit more. Maybe we'll pop it in if we're short of content one week of Ask the Host will ask a question, or we'll pop them into the next Brew with the Coaches. So keep listening. Your time will come. Oh, Strava. Let's have some Strava deets, because also you've got some answers here. So we're not just grasping at straws at why these people have been running all week.
Yeah, it was great. I could actually find out what they were doing. Mike Raffin, 224.3 miles. He did the Bridge Ultra. And if I'm correct, that's over the Severn Bridge, just backwards and forwards. Lisa asked me, and I didn't check this out, how long the bridge is. How many times did he go backwards and forwards? But either way, 224 miles is pretty... Well, I think the race was 200. He's obviously done 20 odd miles during the week too. And all in all, Mike, during the week, you've been out on your feet for 44 hours.
Your poor feet.
Oh my goodness me.
That's speedy running. That's incredible.
He's done really well. And Rob Brooks, I know Rob, but he's really propped up on my radar here because he's done a fast pack.
Why has he popped up, Gary?
I'm going to be in your deets, Rob. 27,000 feet. I just think this is a wonderful thing to do anyway. He's done a fast pack Lakeland 100 over 3 days. Now, I know Rob's V45. Some of I think maybe in the Spine race. Not that I was stalking you, Rob, but I was checking through to try and find out how old you are. Maybe Rob could be on the V50. Take the V50 spot at the Lakeland 100. So I wonder if Rob is going to be over 50 come the end of July this year.
Surely you can find his birthday. Get your police friends onto the
I've been on
records.
Power of 10. I've been on everything. I can't find anything. I think he might not be 50 this year. So fingers crossed. But either way.
Sorry, Rob. I'm so sorry. Feel free to start that restraining order.
But yeah, 27,000 feet. It just looked like a magical few days he had over there in the lake. So well done.
Last week of our competition, is it, Gary? Last week. Thanks to our friends at Big Bubble Hats. We have 2 big bubble hats up for grabs, one for you and one for a lovely jubbly friend. What do you need to do? You need to be a member of our Tea and Trails Facebook group. Why would you not be? It's super, super fun over there. Tag a friend who you think deserves a big bubble hat and share the post with your community too. We will pick a winner.
Tag me.
Yeah, you like that, huh? You like that.
And a friend of mine had tagged my wife. I'm like, at least I can't win the goddamn.
Well, we know that. I just thought I've got to share it so that I can put it on my own. So I thought, who will I tag in? My only one mate, Gary. We will pick a winner at random on Monday, the 15th of May, and I will announce the winner during episode 22. Can we do the Wheel of Fortune during the episode, Gary, or is that too complicated for you?
I will do the Wheel of Fortune on the 15th or 16th, and maybe we'll put it on the episode too. It's too much for me to do.
It's too much. Okay, don't worry.
I've not checked. I wonder actually who everybody's Has everyone
share, we have to do the cross.
Yeah.
We've got to do the cross contamination. That took us a while last time, didn't it?
Yeah.
Don't forget, patrons, you get 15% off all orders at bigbubbleHats.co.uk too. You might think I don't need a big bubble hat right now. We're going into the summer, but actually, there's nothing like putting on a warm hat if you've got a bit of a drive home after a long run or you've done a session. Often I put my hat on if I'm doing my run and then I'm going to do my strength just to keep a little bit of heat in. And
I
also
mine on
means I
yesterday
don't
for
need
the
to
dog
brush my
walk.
hair.
It's not something I need to worry about.
Oh, sorry. Triggering.
Oh, it was Eurovision and the British guy from last year with his lovely long hair.
We are quite similar, both looks and hair, aren't we?
I was really jealous. Hair wings got discussed.
He actually had it clipped back, didn't he? In a sort of lovely half up, half down.
I've never been able to grow hair like that.
I must ask him what conditioner he uses because it looks in good condition.
Beautiful hair.
Talking about more beautiful things, some beautiful people have been making beautiful comments about us.
We referred to as nut jobs, so I'm not too sure.
Oh, jeez. That's the sort of thing I call the kids.
Monkey Boy 0001, the best running companions ever. Okay, he's redeemed himself. Before finding these two nut jobs, I don't know how I ever survived my long runs on repeated 80s cheese. Oh, that's pretty decent. I wouldn't mind that.
Yeah, I love a bit of 80s cheese.
Eddie and Gary are an utter delight to listen to. Great guests and silly chat and the occasional ropey American accent when Eddie gets excited. Just love it. As a mediocre runner, I've also learned a lot too, which is an added bonus. Don't miss out.
I take offense at that critique of my accent, which is highly, highly toned and does not slip into any other international accent.
I love how I think you've got me down as Lancashire or Yorkshire. You never
just
quite do.
Just general. There's no Geordie. It's just a general. Oh, just general.
Oh, I'm not Geordie. Hang on.
Oh, God. Triggered. Just doing it. So sorry. Kumara 1. What an absolute joy. Oh my God. Here we go again. Discovered these two reprobates in February. They got you down. What a brilliant pair to listen to. For ultra runners, there's such a wealth of knowledge, not just from Gary and Eddie, but from the coaches and guests. All of these help inspire you to get out in the weather for a run. Even if you're not a runner, the witty banter, light-hearted jokes and innuendos are priceless. Don't know what you're talking about. Thank you both. And I'll see Gary at the start of Lakeland 100. Kumara 1, are you a V50? Because your relationship's going to be quite different if you're not. What you got? What's your plans then this week?
It's a bit of a muddle this week because tomorrow, hopefully, we're going to go to the lakes
on a Wednesday. This is madness.
Yeah, well, me and my friend really struggled to align our lives, and Wednesday looks like it could.
Treat.
Yeah, I know, a little midweek break. So the plan is to park up at Cockley Beck, run Scarfield Pike, come back down Scarfield Pike, hopefully remember the lines that we thought we'd nailed last time, and then go to Old Man and Coniston, from Cockley Beck, off Coniston down to Winrose Pass, and then run back down the road to Cockley Beck. So we've nailed the two ascents and descents coming up off Scarfield Pike and Old Man of Coniston. Probably, depending on time, we don't need to go all the way to Coniston, Old Man of Coniston itself. That's the plan for that. But then what it has done, because that's such a big run, time on feet on a Wednesday, it really has messed up how I'm going to fit the quality sessions into, because I probably will do a big long run on the weekend too, or at least a long time on feet. So I might do easy miles later on today with some strides, nothing too strenuous. And then because of the two big days, I probably will only do one quality session.
It's so hard when you got the volume in to actually then drag. Yeah. Getting it right is really hard. That's when I look at a more steady state session than a high-end, top-end session, because I'm always in the fear of something going bing.
Bing. So maybe Friday, if I do attempt a quality session. But then I'm looking at the week and I just don't think I can get that medium long run in where it's off the trails and maybe just a bit more running. So maybe we don't do that this week if we've got two big, super big, long days.
Yeah, there's no place for that. You're just adding pointless volume, which I know is the key to your training program.
What about you? Come on then.
No pointless volume for me this week. I've got to fit it all in. We've got a child's birthday this weekend, which is involving a trip to paintballing.
Awesome.
Mom, are you going to paint? I'm not paintballing. I am in charge. Eddie. No, I'm in charge of the goûter and the cake.
You get all the bruises. It'd be awesome.
You know what's going to happen is I'm going to be in charge of every single child that my children have shot in the head coming crying to me. I'm going to be the emergency, or the Bryn is shot in the head. That I'm going to be in charge of the emergency first aid station.
Bryn's going to fall back on all his training and just be nailing everybody.
We're doing a joint party with a friend, and she's one of my running training pals. So actually, we're doing a 3.5-hour run in the morning before the paintball. We're going to be useless for anything. There's no way I could paintball because I wouldn't be able to sprint behind. I'd just be a target. Just shoot me. Keep pouring in the Coke and just shoot me. So I love it. I love a kid's birthday. I'm enjoying all these my kids being that like between 7 and 12 age, because they're they're so lovely. The hormones haven't really kicked in. The younger two, definitely not yet. So they, birthday, everything is amazing. Birthdays, the present list,
soon it'll turn to everything is rubbish.
I know. So I'm just holding on to these last few months of like when it's just so exciting. The birthday list, the planning, the countdown calendar to how many days till the birthday. So so I'm gonna do a long run by myself on the Friday probably, and then a long run with friends on the Saturday. And I've missed those hills today. Whether I add them in, I will just do one this week, just like you, quality session. It will be hills, and it will be the longer hills, because I think that right now where I am in the training is really, my legs are tired. And so I'm looking at more like a strength session. Keep up my yoga, Gary. Keep up my...
How's your Diet Coke going? Are you back on the Diet Coke?
Not really. I had one at the weekend. Only at the weekend, if I have one. And I think I had one. I don't think about it anymore now during the week. Used to be my go-to crack habit at cocktail hour once the kids go into bed. I think probably as well because my oldest now goes to bed about the same time as me. I don't have time for the lovely Netflix Coke binge I used to have. So yeah, I've gone off that now. Oh, one thing I have done is I've upped my supplements, Gary. My hands, like all the tablets that I'm taking now on the recommendation for my creaky old joints, literally I have to have a pint of water, and I stand there like some sort of like breeding
some
cow.
Of them don't go down my tablets. I'm taking my vitamins.
So big. I'm like, I should break this up, because also I look at it as a bit of a challenge, and I'm like, how quick can I take all these tablets? So I'm on now the collagen, the glucosamine, MSN, a multivitamin.
What is MSN? Sorry.
No idea. Don't ask me that. Take that bit out.
Okay.
So I'm on collagen, glucosamine, MSN, a multivitamin, and all my amino acids, electrolytes, B vitamins, magnesium.
I'd be really interested how you get on with glucosamine over the 40 days. It must be every other day I get hit up in my DMs about
do you?
What you're taking for your knees.
That was what my chiropractor was like. Glucosamine, let's get you on this and see. I mean, I've always used to, when I used to ride horses, give it to my horses, glucosamine, and the old dogs. So I'm like, maybe it'll help. So I started taking that for about a week. So yeah, ask me again, June. We'll see.
I've started taking creatine, actually.
Have you? Now, okay, so we've gone through the collagen. We've worked out this works well. This is good. Because I've never taken creatine. I've always been a little bit frightened of it. Is this because you want to bench more, or?
It popped up on 3 podcasts I was listening to, from performance, potentially for running, and also like cognitive, improves your cognitive awareness. Maybe later on in an ultra, I think it was Trail Runner Nation.
Interesting.
Coopcaster came up on something else I listened to. So yeah, I'm not too sure why all of a sudden I've heard 3 podcasts around creatine. So yeah, I thought I'd give it a go. It's up to whoever is purchasing decides if it's cheap or not, but it's quite a low cost supplement. I'm literally about a week into it. I think again it takes about 40 days to saturate your muscles.
I've already been thinking like, my God, this concoction, when I go back to England, how am I going to carry all these rattling old tablet lady?
Well, this is it. I've got so in the morning, I'll have my orange juice. I'll put a scoop of creatine in this. Then I've got to mix that up because it goes a bit gritty. It's not like the nicest thing to drink. Then I've got my collagen, my cup of tea. I'm making my breakfast. I've got my multivitamins. It's like, God, everything. And then it's all
what
cold.
What has become of us? What has become of the 20-year-olds that could go out to Clute nightclub, dance all night, take away pizza, and get up at 8 and go for a run before their lectures? But I don't know
what's happened with creatine. When I heard about it, goodness me, it could be 30 years ago. I heard it was a bit sketchy.
Yes, that's why I'm raised my eyebrows slightly.
Is it your liver or kidneys? I'm not too sure which one it's. If you've got issues with one of those, you shouldn't really take it from what I've read. But the research now, because it's been out there for so long, it seems like, it's a pretty safe and stable supplement.
If we have to put you on wide angle Zoom next time, because
I'll be doing 25 kgs on my dumbbells.
Yeah, 16 kg kettlebell. You'll just be carrying around that for fun.
Thanks for listening all the way to the bitter end. You guys rock. And I'm so sorry if we didn't get to all of your questions. We'll try and slip them in over the coming weeks. Maybe, like Eddie said, we'll pop them in the brew with the coaches. So yeah, if we didn't get to them today, we might get to them in future weeks. And I need you all to stop whatever you're doing. Pop over to Patreon. Check out all the discount codes.
God, I didn't know what you were going to say there. I was like, oh my God, he's going to announce something. I am becoming a woman.
Well, quite often you listen to this podcast and you're out on a run. It's like, oh God, this Patreon. They're banging on about Patreon now. And then they forget about it. So yeah.
You bang on about it. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. He's such a hassler.
I do have one last favourite, that's though. Be kind to your future self. And don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, and a share would be
like, share, subscribe, follow. That's it. Another show done. God, the salmon lips are full on force now. I need the biggest cup of tea after all that chatting.
We normally have a break, Eddie. We rolled straight into our interview.
We have. That is why I'm so dehydrated right now. And famished. Stay safe on the trails. Run wise, run well. Don't overdo it. Better to back off. Listen to your body. Make sure you refuel with lots of tea, snacks, or whatever beverage takes your fancy. This is a non-judgmental safe space. My name is Eddie Sutton.
And I'm Gary Thwaites.
And that was episode 21 of Tea and Trails.